So Anthropic has just launched Claude Sonnet 4.5 yesterday, and the AI community is absolutely losing their mind right now. I've been seeing it all over social media, all over LinkedIn, all over Twitter, all over Instagram. People are talking about how this is absolutely crushing it at coding tasks and any complex agent workflows. So of course, what I'm going to be doing today is just break down these benchmarks, show you why you need to seriously consider switching to Claude 4.5 or why you may not need to for your AI automations in n8n, and then we're actually going to be building some Claude 4.5 AI agents and run some experiments just comparing it to GPT-5 and the previous Claude Sonnet 4 just to see which one actually performs the best. So let's just go ahead and dive right in. So like I said, why we're here today isn't just to talk about Claude's 4.5, but also to relate it back to n8n a little bit and how this can affect AI agents in building your automations. But in any case, I really just wanted to start off with a quick overview of 4.5's release. So obviously today is September 30th, and it was actually dropped yesterday, 29th. But as far as availability, Anthropic made this available immediately for all the Claude users, including both free and paid tiers. So if you go into your Claude interface, you're going to see Sonnet 4.5 available right there. But what actually is Claude's 4.5? Well, 4.5 obviously is the latest model, and it's incredibly powerful. So Anthropic is calling it their best coding model in the world, which is pretty interesting. But it's also the strongest model for building complex agents, the best model at using computers, and it shows substantial gains in reasoning and in math. And here's another really interesting thing. This new version of Claude, it can work autonomously for 30 hours or more, all on its own, which is a pretty massive step up from the 7 hours of autonomous work that Claude's Opus 4, one of their previous models, could handle. So that is about a 4x improvement in how long it can actually stay focused on complex tasks without losing any track of what it is actually doing. So with this release, we are getting Sonnet 4.5 as the main model, and the pricing is actually the same as the previous Sonnet model. So it's $3 per million input tokens and $15 per million output tokens. Now, if you're comparing that to other models, it is more expensive than GPT-5, which is $1.25 per million input tokens. But here is the thing, like sometimes you get what you actually pay for, and we're going to see if that is the case today. Now, one really cool thing about this release is that Anthropic shipped just a whole suite of updates alongside the model, including checkpoints and Claude code that can save your progress and allow you to roll back to any previous states, which is a refreshed terminal interface and a native VS Code extension. So they're basically just positioning this as a complete coding ecosystem, not just a model, which is pretty interesting to see, how they're taking a stand on everything. Now, really quick, I just want to mention that if you are interested in AI news, or anything AI automation, then just make sure to join our free school community where we do deep dives into AI automation builds, just like this. Very often, we have weekly Q&As, monthly competitions, and so much more. So again, link will be down below in the description. It's completely free. Would love to have you in there. Now, of course, I wanted to show you the actual benchmarks, but I do not want to just throw some graphs at you with some fancy names that do not really mean anything to you, like everybody else is doing, because I wouldn't understand that myself, so I'm not going to do that to you. So I'm just going to actually explain what these benchmarks test and why they matter for your n8n automations. So 4.5 is a state-of-the-art on the SWE bench verified evaluation, which is basically just measuring real-world software coding abilities. Now this benchmark, it's basically just pulling actual issues from real GitHub repositories and seeing if the AI can solve them correctly. And the fact that Claude is crushing this means that when you are building any complex automations inside of n8n with these function nodes or needs to debug workflows, 4.5 should theoretically be able to understand and fix issues way better than previous models. Now, on the OS world, a benchmark that basically just tests these AI models on real-world computer tasks, 4.5 now leads at 61.4% compared to Claude's Sonnet 4, which held the lead at 42.2% just about 4 months ago. So that's almost a 50% improvement in just 4 months, which is absolutely insane when you think about it. Now, here's what's really impressive from the real world testing is that Anthropic AI researcher David Hershey said he's seen Sonnet 4.5 code autonomously for up to 30 hours during early trials with some enterprise customers. And in that time, he watched the AI model not only build an application, but also stand up database services, purchase domain names, and perform a SOC 2 audit to make sure that the product was actually secure. That's pretty interesting because our company Sync 2, we're actually pursuing SOC 2 right now. Totally irrelevant, but in any case, so just think about that for a second. This thing isn't just writing code. It is actually orchestrating an entire software project from start to finish, including infrastructure and the security. So that's exactly the kind of capability that we want for complex n8n workflows or anything beyond that, where we need the agents to use multiple tools, make decisions, and chain together, multiple complex actions. All right, another benchmark that is super relevant to your n8n work is instruction following capability. So the model is going to be significantly better than earlier versions at following different types of instructions correctly. So this is obviously crucial when you are prompting your agents inside of n8n. Now, the better it can understand and execute exactly what you're asking, the less time you're going to be spending debugging and reprompting, which obviously makes your life a lot easier. And here's something that might surprise you as well, is Anthropic is actually calling this the most aligned frontier model that they have ever released, showing large improvements across several areas of alignment compared to previous Claude models. So what this is just meaning is that in practical terms, that this model is less likely to refuse reasonable requests, less sycophantic, and generally more helpful while still being safe, which is great. So how does 4.5 plus n8n actually revolutionize what you can automate? Well, first off, smarter automation. So the improved accuracy and reasoning just means that your business can safely automate way more complex tasks, reducing errors and actually trusting that the systems are working correctly without constant human oversight. So we've got an all-in-one power here, where 4.5 is able to handle the text, the code, and complex workflows all in this one platform, which is very nice to have. Having this centralization, it's also going to be more accessible than ever, where this stuff is getting easier to use with n8n's visual building interface. And while 4.5 is more expensive than its, any alternatives, it's still incredibly affordable when you are thinking about the value that it's actually going to be providing. And honestly, if the quality is there, sometimes, or usually most of the time, it's going to be worth paying just a little bit more for better results, especially depending on the use case. Like if you're using some of these systems or automations for production for your business or for your clients. Now, as far as industry impact, you're looking at faster and safer processes in healthcare, marketing, and even IT and education. Basically, just like every industry. So this means that this is going to free up your team to focus more on creative and strategic work rather than just getting bogged down in repetitive tasks. All right, so today we're just going to switch over to n8n, and I'm going to be showing you a few different things. First, we're going to connect 4.5 inside of our AI agents and how you can actually be doing that in a couple different manners. Second, we're going to be doing an actual evaluation inside of n8n using their evaluation feature, which is very useful and used exactly for things like this. We're going to be comparing 4.5 to GPT's 5 and also Sonnet 4. And then I'm going to be plugging 4.5 into one of my personal assistants and give it a very loaded prompt just to see if it can call all the tools correctly and how well it is actually performing. So with that being said, what I'm going to be doing is we're just going to first learn how to connect these together. So if you've been following my channel for a while, you should know how to actually connect this, but of course I'm going to be showing you anyways. So what we have right here is we're using OpenRouter. OpenRouter is essentially a platform that allows you to be using all these different models. So OpenAI we can be using anything from DeepSeek or anything from Claude, Perplexity, Google's Gemini, so much, where you're only having to pay one platform, but you're able to access all of these different models and LLMs, which is great. But of course, if you would like to be still using and connecting with just Anthropic instead, that's still going to be an option where all you have to do is I'm going to disconnect this. You just have to type in Anthropic and then you just enter your API key, which you should be knowing how to get by now. And if we're just going to be using OpenRouter, obviously you'll just want to go into openrouter.ai. If you go inside of your settings, you'll be able to go into your keys. You'll create a new API key, grab that, and then we're going to be coming back into n8n. And we're just going to go into our settings, select OpenRouter, put in our API key right there. So if you guys get stuck with that, just feel free to reference some of my previous videos showcasing how to enter your API keys and everything like that. You'll have to go down a little bit further because it's an earlier video. But in any case, that's how you can actually connect 4.5. So I have found that with just using the regular Anthropic, if I was using, let me back up really quick, Anthropic chat model, and we're using 4.5, I actually found that I was not able to connect the chat model to my AI agent. So obviously pretty problematic, where right now I wasn't able to use tool calling or anything like that. So within the next few days, I'm sure Anthropic or n8n, I'm not sure which side has the issue, but you guys wouldn't be running into these issues that I am running into myself. But anyways, this is a part of the reason why we're also using OpenRouter, because we're not having to worry about any of these issues. But if you test it out for yourself, you'll see some of the issues that you might be running into yourself. But of course, hopefully by the time you're watching this video, there isn't any issues by then. So what we're going to be using is essentially n8n's evaluation tool. So this evaluation tool is just a way to actually compare multiple different data sets. So I've actually done some of the comparisons myself, where you can see some of these recent runs. Now, some of them are better than others, and I'll let you know later on which models are which, of course. But what we want to do is we have this Google Sheet where we have all these different very long-winded questions about a knowledge base that we have trained the system on. So this knowledge base is inside of n8n's AI agent. You can see the system message is, if we were to expand this a little bit, so this is the knowledge base. It's just containing information about a fake company that I had created, where they have information like, here's information on our monthly plans, here's information on some of our services, our pricing, FAQs, and so much more. So we basically just fabricated or created some dummy data where we are asking very specific questions and seeing how the AI system is actually able to handle it. With that being said, I have created some default answers, and these are what the expected answers are. So if you can see, I need to build an agent that processes medical patient data and integrates with our legacy HIPAA compliant system that only has a custom REST API. What plan do I need? What compliance requirements apply? And roughly, what would the total cost be? So with this, the actual answer, this is going to be, you'll need an enterprise plan. This starts at about $2,000 per month because HIPAA compliance is only available for enterprise customers with a signed BAA. So we are hoping if we are going to be running this request through n8n, it's going to create a response that is going to be somewhat in line with that default answer. So that's the actual right answer. And with the evaluation node, by the way, if you guys get confused at any point about this evaluation node, I'm happy to create a video which just goes over how to be using this properly, all these evaluation nodes, because it can get a little bit tricky, even if you watch the evaluation tutorial within here, which I do recommend to check out yourself. But what we're doing is we're basically setting some metrics and saying like, okay, here's the expected answer, the right answer, and here is what the AI is creating from this AI model 4.5. Following along? So now with that, we are just going to be using a metric called a string similarity. So what this is tracking is how close the answer is to a reference answer. And this is measured character by character. And in return, it brings you a score between 0 and 1. So anything closer to 1 is going to be, more accurate in what you're hoping for. Anything further from 1, like it's 0.09 or anything like that, closer to 0, it's going to be further away and not as similar, right? And then there's different ways to actually track the scoring, or the correctness rather, where with the first one, it's just called correctness. So this is just tracking the answer's meaning and consistent with a reference answer. So it uses a scale of 1 to 5. And this one, which is the helpfulness, which is probably what we should be using for this, but I actually ran into some issues myself, and that's where I believe within a couple of days, these kinks are going to be fixed. But right now it's a little bit tricky trying to use 4.5 inside of n8n as of the second day of 4.5 being released, which is totally to be expected. But this helpfulness is whether the response addresses the query, and this uses a scale of 1 to 5. So again, we're using the string similarity, and I have actually tracked the evaluations if I go within here. So what we have right here, this first run, this is actually Sonnet 4.5. So you can see all the string similarity. It's usually within the 0.2 mark. So not the most correct or similar to our actual answers. But I mean, that's kind of to be expected because, I mean, with AI creating a response, there's so many different responses that it can create. But as long as it is solving the issues and the questions, rather, That's all we're looking for. But again, I was trying to use some of the other models and it just wasn't working with 4.5. So again, here is what we had found. So Claude 4.5, this actually was 0.23. This one right here, this was Claude 4, Claude Sonnet 4. This was 0.25, and this was GPT-5. So GPT-5, we actually found was the best results. And then we just ran Claude 4.5 once again, and we got a just a little bit of a bump in terms of the string similarity. So what this again is meaning is that how similar are the AI's response using these new models or whatever model to what we have within here. So we're comparing all of these answers with the AI model's new answers. But you do have to take this with a grain of salt because again, it's not the best metric to be tracking all of these models' responses. So here's the results. GPT-5 was about 0.051 per question. So this actually came out to be the cheapest and the best accuracy. Sonnet 4.5, this was about 0.071 per question. This was the most expensive, funny enough, and had the worst accuracy. Sonnet 4, this was 0.077 per question. So this was about the middle cost plus middle accuracy. But again, I would give it about a couple of days before you are, trying to use 4.5 inside of any of your workflows, just because you are probably going to run into some issues. But again, you'll probably want to be using this helpfulness or this correctness where you are using some sort of like AI base and you're tracking is the model actually being helpful, because I am willing to bet that 4.5 would be performing the best for you, although it's going to be a little bit more expensive than Sonnet 4 and also GPT-5. All right, now next up, what we have is one of our personal assistants, and I am just going to be asking it a multi-step question where I want it to first do research on Claude's 4.5 Sonnet and compare that with Sonnet 4 and the latest Opus model, and also GPT-5, and just weigh which one is the best and compare all of them thoroughly, and which one would also be good for voice agents. And then once you come up with that detailed analysis, I need you to send the results to Nick, essentially my email. So I'm going to send this off and let's see what happens. So obviously we have an issue right away. So I'm just going to make sure that we are using the right mapping. So the key, this is just going to be my chat message. I'm going to grab that. And also looks like we're not using the proper message right here. So let's throw this within here. Define the key. Let's try that again. Okay, so it's first going to run through the personal assistant AI agent, and then hopefully it should be running through Perplexity. And from there, it's going to ideally runs to the Gmail node. Okay, so we just got a result back. It actually did send the email, and if you guys can see right here, it didn't include the proper format that we were hoping for. So we would just have to define that a little bit more specifically inside of n8n, but it was able to compare properly. So let's just weigh that inside of here, so it's a little bit easier to read. So the key findings is GPT-5 is the best overall. So it's most versatile and cost-effective at $1.25 out of $10. Best for voice agents, it is actually clarifying that 4.5 Sonnet is the best for voice agents. It's 50% faster than previous versions, 5 times faster than GPT-5 in certain tasks, where it's 2 minutes versus 10 minutes for code reviews. Cost effective at $3 per million tokens, and excellent for real-time, low latency applications. The runner-up for voice agents, GPT-5. Better conversational abilities, larger context windows, 400K versus 200K tokens. It's going to be the most affordable option, and the trade-off is slower processing speed. Now, the email, it includes the detailed breakdowns of the performance benchmarks, speed comparisons, pricing, context windows, coding abilities, and specific recommendations. So feel free to pause this and you guys can actually read this for yourself, or I will also show on the screen our Perplexity result, where it was just searching through the web essentially. So we could find that Opus 4.1 is 5 times more expensive and Sonnet 4.5 is faster and smarter. GPT-5 is still significantly cheaper. So we're finding all these different results. So if we wanted to, we can actually just have it say and put all of these results inside of the email. But here's some comprehensive comparisons of 4.5 Sonnet, Sonnet 4, Claude Opus, and GPT-5, where overall, Claude 4.5 Sonnet offers significant improvements in real-world computer tasks, obviously, as we were going over earlier. But a lot of this is actually telling us that, GPT-5 is still really within its sights and within its range. But with that being said, I think we would have to wait a few more days before we would be able to actually evaluate some of these different models, like using 4.5 and the evaluations, comparing that with Sonnet 4 and also GPT-5. But anyways, that is going to do it for today's video. So I'm just going to give you my overall take on 4.5 and whether you should really be switching your n8n automations over to it or not. Now, if it's for coding or any complex agentic tasks, 4.5 is absolutely going to crush it for you. The fact that it can work autonomously for more than 30 hours and handle everything from building applications to standing up infrastructure and running security audits says a lot. Now, it's also going to be best for any AI model for coding, and it's genuinely just very impressive. So if you're building complex automations that require any sustained focus and multi-step reasoning, this is probably the model that you want to use. In anything for accuracy, critical applications like document analysis, data extraction, financial analysis, or any high-value outputs, the quality improvement over both GPT-5 and the previous Sonnet 4 seems definitely like it is worth the price premium. Yes, it is going to be a bit more expensive, but if the output quality is that much better, obviously you're going to want to be paying for it. Now, I found that for workflows requiring sophisticated tool orchestration and any context management, 4.5 also really shines. And for debugging any workflows and generating workflow code, as I mentioned earlier, 4.5's coding abilities are legitimately very impressive. Now, for bulk processing or just simple tasks where speed is going to matter more than perfection, then you might just want to use GPT-5 or Sonnet 4, because 4.5 definitely is not faster. And if you're processing thousands of simple requests, the cost difference really is going to add up quite a bit. But anyways, guys, if you want deeper dives into this stuff and really just learn how to build production ready AI agents and AI automations, then check out my school community. We've got comprehensive training programs, tons of workflow templates, and it's just an amazing group of people building cool stuff every single day. Link is down below in the description. We have just over 13,000 members now. But with that being said, if you enjoyed this video or learned something new, please give it a like and subscribe and drop in the comments and just let me know. Genuinely helps me out a ton. But anyways, appreciate you making it to the end of this video, and I will see you in the next one.